Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology, and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
Everybody, welcome back into Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. The Terrebonne Parish District Attorney's Office just got a conviction for a murder. Here to talk a little more about it is the Assistant District Attorney, Chris Ernie. Appreciate you being in. A very interesting case, and I'm glad we don't have too many of these that you guys have to deal with in Terrebonne Parish, but it was a case that you guys worked on and got a conviction.
Yeah, this was actually, if you remember, I was here a couple months ago and talked about a cold case that was Stanley Briggs, and in that case, we used the LSU Anthropology Department called the FACES Lab, FACES, and we had to use them in this case as well because this was a case involving skeletal remains of later determined to be a guy named Henry Aldridge, who had been missing since July the 2nd of 2020. The body was found, the remains were found about 4 months later on November 7th, 2020. And the fellow LSU FACES Lab had come out and did their thing. They are professionals. They're good. They're good at what they do. It's like archaeologists, like you see in Indiana Jones. I mean, they go out and they pull all that stuff together, and everything's well photographed, and they know their stuff. They look at it, and they were able to determine that, in fact, there was, in fact, a gunshot that couldn't say that it killed him, but I mean, right. It was to the head, and it was, into the head. So obviously it was a cause of death.
Yeah. I think the last time it was over there right off of Hollywood Road. Right. Where was correct. This body? This
was actually found in Gibson, North Bayou Black Drive, a field that a body had been dumped. This was an interesting case because we didn't have video evidence of anything. We didn't know where Mr. Aldridge was killed. Didn't know exactly the time he was killed. We didn't have a murder weapon. There was a lot that we didn't have, but we had a lot of circumstantial facts, and we had some inculpatory statements from the defendant himself as he made threats to family members. Because there were street talk going around, and he approached them and threatened them. And then also there was his own statement to police, which he was arrested in December. About a month after the body was found. It took them a while to figure out this was Henry Aldridge. At the time, the sheriff's office thought that this was the remains of another person they were looking for. And then when it got determined from DNA that it was in fact Henry, then this was a Houma Police Department investigation, so they came in and took it over.
Okay, so this Jamar Mosley, a 36-year-old, he was the one that was found guilty of.
That's correct.
So tell me a little bit about the case, if you don't mind.
Well, from the evidence that it came out of trial, apparently Henry was known. He's had his ups and downs, and he had some criminal history himself, and he was engaged by Mr. Mosley to turn cook what we call cocaine and to make it crack cocaine. And his family members had seen him leave his house on Ashlawn with the defendant, nicknamed Fish, and later found out that he went to Fish's house on Truman Street, where they attempted to make the cocaine, the crack. But apparently it got messed up some kind of way. It didn't come out like it should have come out, and apparently the batch was ruined, or there was something wrong with it, and that apparently caused a lot of distress to Mr. Mosley. So an altercation ensued. Apparently Mr. Aldridge, the victim, got hit with a gun, and then Mr. Mosley and some others, at least one other person that we know of, put Henry in a vehicle, and they took off on a car ride for which he never returned.
I see. So
and that was on July the 2nd of 2020.
You said there was a gunshot to the head. Is that like execution stuff?
Well, that's what I argued. It was like an assassination. Now, I don't know if it occurred there or it occurred some other point. We just know that's where the body was found.
I see. So, do we have an issue with this kind of drug trade where, you see Miami, you see a lot of different things where, Scarface, those types of things.
Well,
does this happen a lot?
Unfortunately, we do. And I'll again, without looking at records, it's, I've been in the DA's office since 2003, and I think notably since Katrina, we've had an uptick in drug and in violent crime related to drug activity. It's competing factions or other things like that. In this case, it was just pure anger and hatred that caused it.
And just messed up a batch and cost him money.
And Mr. Aldridge was all for all of his faults. He had a very strong family, had a lot of family members in that area. He lived with his mother on Ashland. He had a sister, a couple doors down. He had very, very tight knit family. He had, in the area. Everybody knew Henry.
But this could have turned into a escalating thing if they, any of his family members would go after Mosley.
And that's actually true. That could have happened. And we do know that Mr. Mosley himself, a few weeks after Mr. Aldridge went missing, Mr. Mosley himself had been shot. On the street. Yeah. So don't know from what. It could have been a multitude of things. I don't think that ever got resolved.
Right. But yeah, when you have somebody that might be shooting somebody execution style, that makes you think, man, this is probably not the first time they're doing these kind of things. So yeah, this is something that a good case for you guys and a good chance.
Yeah.
Anything else coming out of this? Any other?
Well, there was another charge in addition to the murder charge, and we had a lot of evidence that we had to piece together, right? And the jury, and I told them, we're making a puzzle, and so they were coming back guilty. There was another charge, possession of firearm by a convicted felon, and when he was arrested, Mr. Mosley was arrested in December of 2020. They found a gun in the apartment that had his fingerprint on the magazine and also his DNA on the gun. And he had prior convictions, so he was not supposed to be carrying. It was illegal for him to carry a gun. So that was a good charge that he would have. It was a very strong charge compared to the murder case, which we had to piece together different types of way to get it.
Very interesting. Again, I'm glad you don't have to do too many of those in our area, but we appreciate the hard work, man. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
All right. That's Chris Ernie with the District Attorney's Office. I'm Harry McCullough. We'll be right back.